With more on the issue, we're now joined by Jean-Pierre Kingsley, who from 1990 to 2007 served as Canada's Chief Electoral Officer. Mr. Kingsley, thank you for joining us tonight.
A pleasure, sir.
Now, in choosing the route of an independent rapporteur, the Prime Minister points to the Critical Election Incident Public Protocol Panel, which has, as you know, concluded interference from the Chinese Communist Party did not compromise any riding results nor the outcome of an election. How much weight does that carry with you?
A modicum amount, not more than that. We don't know by which criteria these judgments were arrived at, either in terms, and I don't wish to cast aspersions on the results, I'm just saying they asserted that, and we were not apprised of the events, and we were not apprised of the standards by which they arrived at those conclusions. The part of the issue here is that committee is formed of, I think it's 5 very senior officials in the Government of Canada, who all reply to the Government of Canada for their activities, for their responsibilities, which they did. But the criteria they utilized, we don't know. And what happened to the reports, we're just finding out now.
Mm-hmm. So what then do you make of the 2 investigations ordered by the Prime Minister and the appointment of David Johnston as Special Rapporteur?
But in terms of the 2 agencies that will be essentially looking into what they've done, that will be of some interest to me. But passing interest, I'm much more interested in the fact that there should be a public inquiry, and I'm certainly hoping that this will be Mr. Johnson's recommendation to the Prime Minister. As a matter of fact, in order to maintain any kind of credibility about anything in terms of our electoral process, there has to be a public inquiry. We're at that stage now. All the polling is telling us how serious this matter has become in terms of the perceptions of Canadians.
Mm-hmm. So a public inquiry is what you believe is needed, but why not allow the rapporteur to have the time to determine whether that is actually, in fact, what should be used in this case? At the end of the day, he is empowered to make that recommendation to the Prime Minister.
Well, I'm sure he'll take whatever time he thinks is required, but I still maintain that it should be a public inquiry. And I still maintain that should have been the call right from the start and not have the special rapporteur brought into a picture here. Even though I have a lot of respect for Mr. Johnson and his integrity, I still maintain that the Prime Minister should have proceeded directly to the appointment of a public inquiry.
Could you dig deeper as to why you believe that, though? You reference it very quickly, but why do you actually think an inquiry is needed in this case? Because the Prime Minister continues to make the argument maybe down the road, but not right now.
Well, right now, because we don't know when the election will take place. You see, the reason why we need to go to the bottom of this is because this occurred in the election in 2019, of which we were not apprised. The election in 2021, again, we were not apprised. And there's an election looming eventually. And the reason we need to know what happened is that so we can try to prevent it's happening again. It's not a matter of only looking to see who's to blame, what elements were in the hands of Canadians, did they break any laws in doing so? That's important. But what really matters is reinstalling the trust of Canadians in the process, and that trust has to extend to the fact that we know enough now to know that we can prevent this from happening again, whether it's from China or some other entity from around the world that is not Canadian. That is the issue here.
So when should Canadians, or the Canadian public rather, be alerted to election interference? How can that actually happen without interfering with the democratic process?
Well, I've already mentioned, I already wrote to the government about this before the 2021 election, and I said there should be a person sitting on that committee who is independent, who is not responsible to the Prime Minister, to the government, for their activities and for their reports. And that person would make a determination what it is that is sufficiently grave, serious, that it warrants Canadians being advised. And I'll tell you, the bar should be very low about what should be reported, because otherwise that's where you see we're living the situation now where there is this significant erosion of trust in our system. Mm-hmm. The best electoral system in the world, by the way, second to none. I will modify what I've just said. Because of all that Canadians have done for 102 years, we've had integrity in our elections like no other country in the world. We were the first country in the world to establish an independent chief electoral officer.
So do you see the Prime Minister politicizing this process by not going to a public inquiry right away, perhaps even harming the integrity with which Canadians look at their elections that you talk about?
Well, for 17 years, I did not make any comment that was political in nature, and I don't intend to start making them right now. I don't know what the motivation is of the Prime Minister, and to me that is secondary in terms of whether or not we should go ahead with it right now.
Jean-Pierre Kingsley, thank you so much for the time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Good night. Pleasure.